Europe's power map is moving east. Poland was once seen as Europe's buffer zone, stuck between Germany and Russia. Now, that same country is building money, weapons, and influence at the same time. While many people still focus on France, Germany, and the UK, Poland is getting harder to ignore. Why does this matter? Because Poland's rise can affect jobs, prices, energy security, and political stability. The country once treated as a border state is now being discussed as Europe's new superpower. Most people hear the simple version. Poland is growing, arming itself, and helping Ukraine. But the real story is deeper. Power does not shift overnight. Factories move, NATO routes change, and allies start listening more carefully. That is how the Poland economy, Poland military power, and the Ukraine war are changing Europe. By the end, you'll understand why Poland is no longer just reacting to Europe's problems. It is becoming one of the countries shaping what happens next. This is a story about Poland versus Germany, security versus cost, and ambition versus pressure. If Poland really becomes a Poland superpower, Europe may not look the same again. Stay until the end because the final question might flip how you think about Europe's future entirely. Chapter 1: The economy that refused to stay small. Poland was supposed to catch up, not make Western Europe nervous. After communism collapsed, the Poland economy looked like an old factory with broken machines and no clear future. But over time, Poland turned itself into one of Europe's key manufacturing, logistics, and export hubs. That's when the idea of a Poland superpower starts sounding less like hype and more like a real shift. Since joining the EU in 2004, Poland has grown faster than many Western economies and recently passed the $1 trillion GDP mark. Foreign companies came for skilled workers, lower costs, EU access, and a location right between Western Europe and the eastern frontier. Think of it like a small store suddenly built beside a major highway. Once the traffic arrives, everything changes. Factories, warehouses, roads, and exports made Poland's rise from a cheap labor story into a serious economic player. That affects real things: jobs, prices, markets, and where companies choose to invest next. Now, Poland is not just using Europe's system, it is starting to gain power inside it. A stronger Poland economy gives Warsaw more influence in the EU, more confidence in NATO, and more leverage after the Ukraine war. That's why Poland versus Germany is becoming a bigger story. One country is speeding up, while the other is struggling to regain momentum. Poland looks younger, cheaper, and more aggressive, while old European powers face slower growth and higher pressure. But this new economic power becomes risky when growth starts demanding influence that older powers may not want to share. Chapter 2: Europe's new military frontline. Poland used to look exposed on the map. Now, that same location makes it essential. Between Germany, Belarus, Ukraine, and Russian pressure, Poland became NATO's front door in the east. Before, it looked like a house stuck between unstable neighbors. After the Ukraine war, that house became the one everyone needed guarded. That's why Poland's military power is now central to the idea of Europe's new superpower. Poland is spending far above NATO's 2% target and buying tanks, artillery, air defense, and fighter jets. The message is clear. Poland doesn't just want protection, it wants to become the protection. More weapons can mean more industrial growth, but also tighter budgets elsewhere. Poland's rise is now tied directly to how Europe spends money on security. NATO depends on Poland more than it did a decade ago. U.S. troops, weapons routes, and Eastern defense plans have turned Warsaw into a strategic anchor. Think of NATO like an alarm system. Poland is becoming one of its loudest sensors. That gives Poland more influence, but also more danger, because being Europe's shield means being the first place pressure hits. Chapter 3. The Ukraine War changed everything. The Ukraine War didn't just change Ukraine, it changed Poland's place in Europe. Suddenly, Poland was no longer a side character between Germany and Russia. It became a corridor for weapons, refugees, aid, energy shifts, and NATO coordination. By early 2026, around 4.4 million Ukrainians had temporary protection in the EU, with Poland among the biggest host countries. That turned Poland's geography from a problem into leverage almost overnight. Since 2022, about 1.86 million refugees have applied for temporary protection in Poland, putting pressure on housing, schools, hospitals, and local budgets. But that same pressure also made Poland look reliable when Europe needed fast action. And in 2024, Ukrainian refugees added an estimated 2.7% net impact to Poland's GDP, showing the crisis also reshaped jobs and growth. This made Poland louder in European politics. Warsaw could speak about Russia, NATO, energy, and security with more credibility than before. Why does this matter? Because Poland now hosts around 10,000 U.S. troops, and decisions made there can affect fuel prices, defense budgets, and political stability. The Poland rise is not only economic anymore, it's strategic. But the more necessary Poland becomes, the harder it gets to stay out of the next crisis. Chapter 4. Germany slowed down, Poland sped up. For decades, Germany was the economic engine. Now Poland is the country gaining speed. That's the uncomfortable part of Poland versus Germany. Germany is still richer, bigger, and more powerful, but its model is under pressure. High energy costs, weak industrial confidence, and slow growth have made Europe's old engine sound less smooth. And when the engine slows, jobs, prices, markets, and political stability all feel the vibration. Germany's economy grew only 0.3% in early 2026, while unemployment passed 3 million people. At the same time, Poland looks cheaper, younger, faster, and more willing to spend big on infrastructure and security. Think of it like two trains. Germany is still the heavier train, but Poland is the one accelerating. Companies looking for factories, warehouses, and workers might start choosing Poland more often. This is why the Poland rise feels bigger than normal growth. It's happening while Germany faces energy pressure, industrial stress, and political uncertainty. Poland's economy and Poland's military power are moving together, which gives Warsaw more weight inside NATO and the EU. But speed creates expectations, and expectations create pressure. Because if Poland wants to become Europe's new superpower, it must prove it can grow fast without overheating. Chapter 5. Can Poland really become a superpower? Poland is rising fast, but speed is not the same as control. That is the real question behind the Poland superpower story. A country can grow its economy, expand its army, and gain power in NATO, but still hit hard limits. Think of it like sprinting uphill with a heavy backpack. The momentum is real, but so is the weight. Poland faces population decline, political division, dependence on EU markets, Russian pressure, and huge military costs. A bigger army improves security, but it also pulls money from housing, healthcare, schools, or tax relief. If Poland succeeds, Europe gets a stronger Eastern anchor. If it fails, Europe could face higher security costs and deeper political splits. So Poland's future depends on turning momentum into lasting power. The Poland economy gives it strength, the Ukraine war gave it urgency, and Poland military power gave it a louder voice. But Europe's new superpower is not a title a country claims, it is a role others are forced to recognize. That is the bigger question behind Poland's rise. Is Poland rising fast, or is Europe's center of gravity truly moving east? So what do you think? Is Poland really becoming Europe's new superpower, or is this just a temporary moment after the Ukraine war? Could Poland versus Germany become Europe's biggest power shift? And if Europe's center of gravity moves east, what happens next? Subscribe, turn on notifications, and keep learning how geopolitics, economics, and power shape your everyday life.